Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky!
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
I named the dog Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in paints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who loves some ice with a little bit of sugary syrup on top. It's Frank. How are you today?
Hey, how you doing, Piragua?
Yeah, Piragua. I'm doing well, Frank. I like your new nickname for me, Piragua. That's pretty cool.
Yes, you're the Piragua guy. You're the Lin-Manuel character. Yeah, man, I am so excited to talk about what we're talking about today. For a number of reasons that have to do with getting back out in the world and all that fun stuff. But before we do, are you drinking anything?
I am drinking something, Frank, and guess what? It's new. It's fun. It's from Framingham, Massachusetts. It's the Springdale Beer Company's Pearly White Ale, which is a nice, soft, little citrusy thing going for it. I have never had this before. This was brand new for me. I went to a store near me. If I want to be from Boston, I went to the Packy.
Of course,
I went to the Packy, which we don't actually say. The further out from Boston you get.
Yeah.
And so you go to the liquor store. And so I did you pick 6, so naturally I got 12. And this was one of them. And it is delicious, I have to tell you. Refreshing, nice spring summer beer. I honestly can't recommend it enough. If you can grab it in your area, it is delish.
That sounds phenomenal, and I like the design on the can too. That is
Me too. Caught my eye. Mm-hmm. Reminded me of like a cool 50s car. Like I was going to a car show in some like soft ice cream parking lot play. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like that's kind of the vibe.
Totally. Yeah. For people who can't see it because of audio podcasts, it's this really nice, like sort of like aqua color, right? Like very cool design. Yeah,
it's cool. It's a wit beer.
It's a wit beer,
so it's not too heavy. The label says that it's tart. I don't find it overly tart, but like I usually reserve that for like a sour or something like that. The tart is what I normally would not associate with a wit beer. But
sure,
this is the stuff. I do recommend it. It's excellent. I will be getting more.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad that you found it to be an enjoyable summer beer. I am also enjoying what I consider to be a very enjoyable summer beer. Tim, it's back, baby. Porch Rocker is back. Sam Adams seasonal Porch Rocker Lemon Radler, and it is as just as refreshing as I remembered it from last summer. So yes,
fantastic.
I got a big variety pack of a bunch of Sam summer beers that I'm going to be enjoying over the next few weeks. And the Porch Rocker never disappoints. It is always fun. And it's refreshing. It is just refreshing lemon lime sort of flavor with a Helles beer underneath, and so good. So there we go. Enjoying that as we talk about a summer movie. And let me tell you, man, I got to see this movie at a theater.
All right, rub it in. Why don't you?
I got to go to a theater. I'm just so happy. I'm just filled with joy, and like I got to do something normal. It felt good.
Okay, so we're going to talk about In the Heights, directed by John Chu. based on the musical by Lin-Manuel Miranda, 2008 Tony Award winner, I believe. Very good. But tell me about your theater experience first before we talk about In the Heights. Actually, I'd really like to know what it's like to go back to a movie theater.
It was lovely, I have to say. It was, we went to a theater at a mall, and they had reserved seating and all that jazz.
Still spaced out, or you can sit next to complete strangers?
I don't know, because there were only about 10 people in the whole theater.
Okay.
So we were spaced out, but just because there were so few of us,
Gotcha.
It didn't seem like there were any limitations on seats that were being sold. So
okay.
But that was nice that there just weren't really any concerns. My wife and I are both vaccinated, and so it's been nice that we're able to do some of these things, gradually, little by little. We're still sort of it feels weird, right? After a year of like conditioning yourself and being reminded like to take certain precautions.
Not go to places, yeah.
Not go to places, keep your mask on while you're there, all that stuff. It's it's sort of weird, like, is this really okay? Or really okay? I guess at some point you just got to try and do it, and like but there is that sort of that factor where you're like, okay, here goes nothing. But it was great. We went to dinner, we saw the movie, got some popcorn. I forgot how good movie theater popcorn is. It is
not a big fan of movie theater popcorn. Actually, that is not a draw for me.
I love movie theater popcorn.
I think it's overly salty.
I'm curious if you'd still feel the same way trying it now after over a year of no opportunity to try it.
Oh, that's a good point. Because I wasn't drawn to it before, I would say that I'm probably going to feel the same way about it. My feelings about salt haven't really changed.
Okay.
But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. It's not something that I felt particular. Like, I know people who say, like, oh, I love popcorn, but I especially love movie theater popcorn. I never really felt that way in particular. But after a year away from it, I'm like, oh man, this is nice. It's like a familiar thing that I get to have. It's like when you get to, like, I don't know, when you put on your own, like, favorite pair of jeans or something, you're like, oh yeah, that's it. That's the right fit. That's the, my favorite slippers or whatever.
Sure.
It was nice. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And there are certainly movies that might be a better cinematic experience, like an action movie or something that would be a taking advantage of the sound system and seeing the effects on the big screen and all that stuff. Certainly there might be another movie that's better, when Black Widow comes out or whatever. Maybe that's something that I'll be more drawn to the theater for. But this just felt like, yeah, let's go see a musical in the theater and like just enjoy the vibe. And it was great. It was a great return to theater, given that my last movie I saw in the theater was Cats in February of 2020.
That's a nice 180 that you've done on the movie musical.
Exactly. Like, what a complete 180.
Yeah. So how did you actually feel about In the Heights? Did you know the music ahead of time? Did you know the story? All that stuff.
Didn't know the story. I had listened to some tracks from the soundtrack a year or so ago, maybe. Yeah, I think it was around the time that Hamilton dropped on Disney Plus that I was like, oh, I really want to get into In the Heights, because at the time there was still some hope that maybe it would come out during the year last year. Maybe they would drop it on streaming or something. And so I was still hopeful for that. I'd actually seen the trailer before Cats and was,
oh man, what a
tease.
No kidding.
What a tease. But I saw the trailer.
You knew what you were getting into when you saw Cats, though. It's not like you're like, I wonder if it's going to be good.
No, everyone knew it was going to be what it was going to be. But I was excited for In the Heights because I already liked Hamilton, and so I knew a couple of songs, but I didn't know the plot really. I just sort of vaguely knew, like, okay, it's about Lin-Manuel Miranda writing about a semi-autobiographical sort of piece about his neighborhood in Washington Heights. And that's really all I knew. I didn't know what happens or any, how it plays out. So I knew it was sort of a slice of life type of a thing, based on his life, and that was kind of it. So I was delighted by the show itself. When I say the show, I mean like by the how do I put, like, sort of the substance of the musical itself, right? Like, not necessarily even the presentation of it or how the movie looked or any of that, but just like, how is the music and how is the books and lyrics, and music, like how is that? And loved that. Thought like, wow, yes, this is a great story and great music and great songs and great choreography and all of that. And then on top of it, I thought it was a really, really well executed movie as well. So I just thoroughly enjoyed it. Thought it was fantastic. What did you think? What were your thoughts on it?
I loved it. I thought it was great. It was kind of exactly what I wanted or needed, if that, like, it's a good story. I wouldn't say it's an overly original story. People want to escape the home that they have, but then there's the reversal of the, but if I am gone, maybe it's not the way that I thought, and blah blah blah. It's, in a lot of ways, it's very like an 18-year-old's problem. It's that it has that kind of thing. So when Usnave says like, I'm almost 30, I was like, is this a problem that you should be having at almost 30? But I guess like he's saying the same thing. Like, I really shouldn't be thinking like this or
right.
doing this thing. So so there was that. But I thought that what I keep going back to is the energy in the film. Like, it's so kinetic from start to finish. We're always slipping and sliding into the next moment. So then by the time that you get to some really still or somber scenes, like the dinner sequence, the blackout, or what comes with some of the things that come up with the blackout, things like that, you really feel the show or the movie stop and give you like adherence to the moment. And I thought that was great, because a lot of movie musicals, I think modern movie musicals, I miss the energy component, because so much of a musical relies on the energy of the audience, and so and how people are feeling in the seats. And the actors feed on that, the orchestra feeds on that, and everybody. It's like this kind of symbiotic cycle, and you don't get that in a movie. It's very hard to do that in a movie. And so I thought that everyone did a really great job at pushing that forward. I also really appreciated that they were musicians, like actual dancers and singers, and because so often a movie musical is, here are the names, right?
Yes.
Here are the people who might have a musical background. They might even have come from that world, and a lot of times they don't, and it falls, or they don't come from a stage background, and it can fall very flat in their performance or their music, and it really just sucks the life out of the movie. And I did not find that here at all. Actually, especially with I'm going to use my lookup, because I'm not very good with character names at the present moment. In the Heights,
it was very good. They did use actual musical theater performers and actual people who have experience in that, so that it wasn't just let's get movie stars who can sing or who can be taught to sing or dance. It was let's get musical theater people who fit these roles.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, it was Olga Marindez who played Abuela.
Oh, yes, she's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, she originally played Abuela in the Heights in 2008 on stage. She got a Tony Award for it, and so they brought her. So they brought her back, but two, you could tell she was a stage actress in the way that she expressed herself in song. Right. It wasn't just, I'm going to sing this song, and the louder I sing it, the more emotion I have, right? There's real layered acting in her performance from top to bottom, but it really comes across in her song. And stuff like that is what I really appreciated the most out of In the Heights. I thought there was really interesting camera work too, like the dance sequence on the building towards the end of the film.
Yes, when it turns sideways and all of that. Yeah, so, that was really nicely done.
There's a lot of love for older musicals in here that I like. I saw a review that was like stands on the shoulders of better musicals or something like that. Stuff that's done before. And I'm looking at like, you know what a homage is, right? You know, like,
Right.
or like that's like they're like taking what is typically done in a very white, very old musical and applying that to Washington Heights, to the Latino community, to the, it's like stuff like that. So I was like, I get what you're saying, but I don't agree with you. This is called playing with the tropes.
Right.
And I think it worked really well. And I thought it worked really well.
I feel like that might be mistaking something intentional for something like accidental. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda is very intentional about, like, he's a huge Broadway nerd. I mean, he even quotes shows in his shows. He'll have little lyrics and things, right?
Hamilton is like littered with other shows, like references to other shows.
Absolutely. Like direct lyrical references, melodic references. And same in this show. There were a couple of them in this movie where he takes a line from another show or whatever. I mean, even the framing device of Usnavi talking to the camera and sort of introducing all the characters and everything, that's like straight out of Fiddler on the Roof. Like that is taking the Tevye narration device, and applying it here. And that's not coincidental. That's not accidental. He doesn't think he invented that. He did that because he loves Fiddler on the Roof and he wanted to do his version of it.
That's right. Do you know if that framing device is a direct reference to Fiddler, or are you just guessing?
I actually heard Lin talk about it on a
great.
YouTube interview.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I actually really liked the way that was done in the movie itself. Kind of spoilers for In the Heights movie here on out, just in case I like the way that's done because it looks like he's in the DR. And that's very specific, or even that they are in the DR. And I was like, oh, okay, so he makes it interesting. That's an interesting way to start the show. But I can see it like done on stage at the same time. Okay, here's some nice blue aquatic lighting. Here's some, here's the little cart in the corner with the kids, and it's kind of like, and then we move to the rest of the stage. And I like the way that it was done here, but then to kind of trick me.
Yeah, fake you out.
With the actual DR setting, instead of going into the corner store, the Packy, if you will,
bodega.
So I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, I like that too. I've not seen the stage version of the show, so I don't know if that exists in the original Broadway version or not, but I love the way they did that.
It does. I'm sure that it does.
Either way, I love the way that they did that, because the fake out, they got me with that, and that was very, very well done. There was, and there were other, you talk about the sequence where they're dancing up the side of the building and the cameras turn sideways. There were a few moments like that where I really felt like they did a great job doing something you could only do on film, right? You couldn't have done on stage, like that sequence, like the seat you just mentioned, Abuela's song on the subway, right? The way that was done was so, surrealist, and the subway cars changing from modern day subway to old, vintage subway cars, and all the colors and the everyone dancing around her. Like, that's something that really the way it was done might be an interpretation of the stage version. I don't know, but the way it was done was uniquely filmic. Or the scene at the pool, even, you couldn't do that on stage exactly that way.
You couldn't. No, I absolutely agree. I was actually thinking in that scene, I was like, my God, those people are dancing in water. How hard is that? How talented are they? Like, my wife and I watched together, and I think it was that scene. She was like, I can't stop looking at everybody's abs. It's just extraordinary, the talent in the film. But I think there really isn't any stunt casting, which I really like. I think as close as you get is Jimmy Smits.
I was gonna say that's pretty much it.
And he's good. Like, he's
great.
Solid.
Yeah.
He's really great. I mean, he's always great because he's Jimmy Smits. He's just a legend. So I thought all of that was top notch. I think that a lot of the story plays off of itself really well. Like, it sets up and delivers on a lot of things. Delivers on the lottery ticket, delivers on the cab company, delivers on the on the clothes and the spray painting and like all these little all these small little things that you think are just kind of set decoration end up being integral to the story and all mix and match. And that's really hard to do as a writer, to like take all of these things and make all these disparate things and make them coalesce together. That's really difficult. And I give it the story a lot of credit for being able to do that. I do think there are plot threads that are dropped that I don't know the end to. So like Jimmy Smits sells the cab company so his daughter can go to college.
Yes.
And when that means that guy is out of a job, that other guy is out of a job. That's never resolved. Like she goes off to not Stanford, right? Like she goes somewhere else. And that guy has no job and Jimmy Smits is just not going to work anymore. Like there's stuff like that it's like, what about them? Like,
sure. Yeah. What about that? I mean, Jimmy Smits his character talks about how he wanted to build something of his own, right? He didn't want to work for someone else. He wanted to build his own thing. That's why he was trying to do better than his father did, and he wanted to build something and then make it so that his kids could go to college. So like then what happens after it? So he's not going to work for somebody else. So what is he going to? If he sold his company, what's he going to do? How's he going to make money? That is a valid question, and what does happen to? I'm also blanking on characters' names because I've only seen it the once, and I haven't gone down the rabbit hole like I do with
Benny. Benny is the name.
What
of the
happens
guy.
to Benny? Like what happens to? I know in the original musical that Benny and the Jimmy Smits character don't get along, and that he doesn't like that he's dating his daughter. And that's more of a plot line where like he doesn't like the fact that she's dating somebody who is not from their culture, because Benny is black and not part of their culture. So that's actually a big plot line from the show that was dropped for the movie to presumably not because they were tiptoeing around the racism issue, but probably because of just time and like streamlining.
It's already 2 hours and 20, something like that, this show. That's interesting because Lin has been called out for only showing like a Latino experience in Washington Heights and not showing a Latino black experience or a black experience. Like they're like,
that's right,
there in Benny, but that's about it.
Yeah.
And so that's not my world. So I can't comment on it.
Sure.
Like it's not my place.
Sure.
It's not my place.
The only reason I bring that around is just to mention that maybe the reason we don't find out about Benny is because of something that didn't carry over from the original show.
Gotcha.
Where that plot line didn't carry over. Maybe there's something else about Benny that didn't carry over as well. That was just
yeah. No, that's a great point because I don't know the original musical very well. I purposely wanted to enter into the movie once I knew they were making a movie. Even before the trailer, I made the decision to be like, I want to go into this blind, like because I won't have the ability to see it on stage for a while, presumably. So I want to see what this is about from a firsthand experience. Because sometimes when you know the songs ahead of time, then you start like critiquing, like, the person I know sings it this way, but you're singing it this way, and blah blah blah.
It becomes more difficult to look at it for what it is, rather than comparing it to like what you liked about another performance and what you don't like as much about this perforance.
Exactly. We do it with like superheroes all the time. It's no longer like, I wonder, can't wait to enjoy this new Batman story. It's more like, how is Robert Pattinson going to play Batman, and how will that stack up against all of these other actors?
But then when you see an interpretation of a character you don't know that well, you don't nitpick that's different than the comics, because it's not as precious to you. You don't care as much about those things. And so the same goes for performances and songs. Like, if I don't know that song, I'm not going to be as precious about it. I'm just going to say, do I like this or not?
Yep. And I walked away. Well, I stood up from my couch anyway, and I said, yeah, this was good. Yeah, this was really strong.
It was very like uplifting and just it felt very like rallying around this community and these people who, even though they were from different backgrounds, right? Like there's the whole sequence where they're waving all their flags of their home countries, and they're not all from the same place, but they all live in the same place, and they have come together and built a neighborhood. They are a neighborhood, and they have that dinner party, and I guess it's at Abuela's. I think it's at Abuela's house. Yep. And they're not family, but they're greeting each other like family. And they see each other virtually every day, but they still they come in, they say hello, they hug and kiss. They are like a family. I mean, that looked to me like my family looks on like holidays or something, right? Like on Easter Sunday, if we have a big dinner.
I said that to Mary too. I was like, there's very little difference between how they're all greeting each other and how I watch your Italian family greet each other.
It's true. My Italian family is very, very similar in that way. And so I felt like that was I felt very connected to that in a way. And also not from the same part of the world, but both of my parents are immigrated to this country. So I'm first generation born in this country, and I could relate indifferently, not exactly the same way. It's a different culture that I come from, but I could relate to the immigrant experience and the sacrifices that parents make so that their kids can have a better life. Like all of that message really rang true for me because I reflect on that a lot. That's part of my identity.
Right. Actually, glad that you brought that up because I was really taken with Nina's story, because it's a lot of the story is about like getting out of the heights to do your dream, but and there's a lot of like, oh, it turns out I can actually do my dream from where I am, which is a good message and a bad message. I think all mixed into one. Like they're not exactly settling. Because they realize that this place is home, which is good, and they can make home better instead of escaping to a place. I like that part very much, but I was taken with Nina's story because of the pressure that she feels. Like it's not just her going to college; it's like she's basically going to college for everybody.
Yeah,
and that's like, and she just can't. That's a very hard thing to live with. That amount of pressure. I don't know if you felt that when you were going to college.
Not in quite the same way. Definitely not to the same degree that she does.
Yeah.
But I understand it. I do understand maybe not with college, but with other things. There are certain things where it's like you feel almost a responsibility to like honor the sacrifices that were made for you. My parents, my grandparents made sacrifices for me and my sister, for our family, so that we could have a leg up, over what they had when they came here. And I'm very, very grateful for those things and very, very aware and conscious of them. And so, yes, those are thoughts that I think lots of people who come from that background, from that kind of background where you're the first generation to be born in a new country, I think that's a very common experience for first generation people. And it definitely felt like familiar sentiment. Again, not to the same degree where the whole neighborhood is like counting on her to like, you're the one who got out. But I do understand her feeling of like questioning herself of like, is it better to have gotten out, or should I like, should I go out and better myself and then bring that better self back to the community to give back to the community that I came from? Like, what do I have a responsibility to come back and bring the stuff I learned elsewhere, bring it back and make it a better place for the next generation, the same way someone made it better for me.
Yep. Yeah, no, that's good. Thinking about this story, but also In the Heights as a whole, what you said earlier about the framing device, there's a lot of fiddler in this show. There's a lot of Fiddler on the Roof. If you look at the different love stories and what everybody wants for one another, and whether they're going off or whether they're staying, or whether they, what the sacrifices they intend to make for one another, or making the community better. What's the thing with the family? Who am I disappointing? Blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of Fiddler in here, because that's also a very universal story, right? About the family.
Totally.
And your expectations and responsibility towards your family.
And I think it's interesting that in Fiddler, they get forced out, right, by the government, and they go to a pogrom. And in this show, the people who leave are leaving because of gentrification. Like the neighborhood is getting gentrified.
That's
And
right. Yeah, they see the whole neighborhood. They said the whole neighborhood is going to be something different.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's not exactly the same, but it's a that's a modern day version of what's happening in neighborhoods like that one, like the one that we're seeing in this show, in this movie.
Sure.
That's happening all over the place. That people are where there were sort of cultural centers that were established. A lot of those people are being pushed out because the rents are getting higher and they can't afford to keep, that's why the taxi company had to sell half of the storefront, right? Because he couldn't keep up with the costs anymore, and then ultimately decided to sell the whole thing to pay for Nina's college. But it's a true story. It's a true story that's really happening. And so it's while that was in Fiddler, that was the issue of that day. That they were talking about, the time period they were talking about in that show. This is an issue of our present day.
Yeah, well said. Very well said, Frank. Very well said. I want to leave us off with one thing. I thought the kid who played Sonny was freaking delightful. Top notch. Like, oh my gosh. He was so good and so expressive. He like does this like thing where he like quivers his lip at certain points when he's like, it's like really thoughtful acting, and I just can't wait to see whatever his future is. I know that he was in Matilda on Broadway, on the Brodway. But
yeah, he was fantastic. I noticed. I thought he was extremely talented, and yeah, I would love to see him do more stuff. I wonder if many of these actors will do more, film and TV, if they will do more, movie musicals in the future, or will they go back to the stage when theaters are reopened, and will they have bigger careers on Broadway now than they would have before?
I don't know, but I'm looking forward to any and all of those things. But Frank, where can the people find us?
Well, you can find us at beerwithgeeks.com or thoughtbubbleaudio.com. That's the hub for all of our shows across our network. And you can rate and review us in places like Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, Spotify. You can, of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Beer with Geeks. You can email us, beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. And if you want to support us, $1 a month would be a huge help, and we would really appreciate it. Patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio is the place that you can do that.
Well said, Frank. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I can't wait to talk to you again next week. But until then, cheers. That movie made me miss New York, made me like homesick for New York in the worst way. Oh yeah, I can see that totally. Yeah. There were like 3 or 4 different actors in that movie who have been on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Oh, totally. Is it Carla? What's her name? The one that you just said? Because I know her, because I've seen her stand up too. Okay. Yeah, she's hilarious. She's funny. And then Jimmy Smits has been on, and Abuela has been on. Really? And yeah, because Abuela is like, she's like 30 years younger than they make her up to be in this movie. She's not gray haired or anything. Like that was all makeup and prosthetics. Right. And we didn't even talk about Anthony Ramos and how great he is. I know. We almost like skirted around him, but yeah, he really held it together. He's going places. And did you see in that scene where it's Lin-Manuel's character and the Mr. Softy guy? Yes, that's George Washington. Yes. Oh yes. Oh yes. I knew. He originated the role of Benny. Oh, I did not know that. Lin wrote the role of Benny for him. I know that Lin always writes parts for him because they're good friends. So I know that he's always there. Yep. That's why he's Moana's dad. He's George Washington. Yes. He's whatever Lin does next. And I totally forgot to say this. When you said that feels like an 18-year-old problem, he was 19 when he started writing the show. Yeah. See? Yeah. It actually reminded me of the Rent movie where like they're all 18 or 19 on stage, but then you watch the movie and they're all in their 30s and you're like, you should be past this by now. Yes. However, like we're really not like as that far progressed as we would like to think
That's true.
So,
but it definitely, it's a different. It was written for a different audience and a different like time period.
Yep.
So those were and people of different age. But yeah, he started writing when he was 19, and it got to Broadway when he worked on it for like 8 or 9 years, and it got to Broadway when he was like 28. So it took him all that time, and he was like constantly working on it in the background while he was doing other stuff. That was sort of the thing he kept coming back to, was In the Heights, and then eventually it became its own thing.
Wow, that's amazing. It is pretty amazing. In the Heights.